For use with the EC2, you can use these EFS with your EC2 instances as a file shares and can be used as a common data source for workloads and applications running on multiple instances. So if you have a requirement where you need to share a common storage or common location and you need to mount them as a kind of a file share, then you can use EFS for that purpose. Then there is no need to pre-provision. It can grow and shrink automatically as per the utilization. So what do we mean by pre-provision? That if you remember when we were providing those EBS, we had to specify a specific size basically. That this would be the size of my hard disk, because we have to pre-provision those EBS disks, maybe 50 GB, 10 GB, 8 GB, whatever it was. In this case, we will not will need not to specify the sizing beforehand before we start to use it. Okay, so this is one of the differences. Oh, sorry, I don't know. You're not able to hear. Okay, okay. So let's go back then. Okay, so there's no need to pre-provision your EFS. You can just configure it and use it according to your utilization. The size of EFS would keep on increasing or decreasing. If you put file of 5 GB, you will be charged for 5 GB. If you have you remove the file after that 5 GB, you remove 2 GB, you will be charged for 3 GB. So it keeps on growing and shrinking the way your S3 was doing. Sorry. Then you can your EC2 instances can access your files. You can attach as a mount point, and not only EC2 instances, you can use it with your on-premise servers also. But the condition is you need to have either a VPN or a direct connect kind of a connectivity, which is connecting your on-premise data center to the AWS facility. So if you have that, you can also mount these file shares to the on-premise servers also. Then NFS version 4 is the protocol which we use to access EFS. So what does it mean? The next point is related to that. What does it mean? I'm using that this is EFS is supported, or NFS version 4 is only supported to access the EFS. Anyone can guess what does that mean? Okay, because this is using NFS version 4 only, you cannot use it with Windows instances. You need to remember that if there's a scenario which is asking for a shared storage, you cannot use EFS because EFS do not support CIFS. It only supports NFS. So that's why you can only use the Linux machine with the Linux machine, not with the Windows machines. That said, let's go further, and the couple of things which you need to remember or you need to know. EFS comes in two different storage classes: standard and infrequent access. Infrequent access can be defined based on the number of days when your data is not being accessed, like 14 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, depends upon kind of requirement you have. Okay. Then the other thing which you need to understand is the throughput mode. That throughput mode basically busting and provisioned. Your busting mode is the default mode, while provisioned, if you need some specific IOPS for some kind of a file share, then you can opt for the provisioned throughput mode as well. But that would be charge extra because it would always give you that requested number of IOPS per second. So you need to see almost all the major cases would be able to, you can make use of this busting mode. in a very where you need a very fast accessible storage, then you would require the provisioned access over there. Okay, then we have something called performance mode. So you will find there are two options. The one is the general purpose, and then another one is maximum input output. So basically, AWS recommend that you should be using this general purpose for almost all the file systems. But if you are sharing the one common storage where you are using on, lot of EC2 instances which are going to access this storage simultaneously, then you can think of using maximum input output or max IO. Okay, so these are the performance. As this is a storage service, you will find it under storage. Click on AFS. So this is what is the welcome pages. So if you click on create file system, it will take you to the creation bus. First of all, you can see also that this is a fully managed cloud native NFS file system. The cost is approximate is this much. Basically, this cost keeps on changing, and it is based on region to region. And this is basically showing you the cost of Northern Virginia region. Okay, and it assumes that your most of the storage is EFS IA. 80% of the storage is EFS IA. Okay. So click on create file system. So first you need to find a VPC, or if you are using a custom VPC, you can select that, but currently we are using a default one, so we'll stay with the default one. And the moment you click on create create file system, it will select the VPC and start creating a mount target. So these are the mount targets, and they normally it gives you a mount target in each of the availability zone. You can see that. And even this is the recommended also from AWS that we should be creating a mount target in each zone, so that your EC2 instances across the VPC can access the file system. So you might have, if they are available in all the availability zones, all your VPCs across, all your EC2 instances across your VPC would be able to access the file system. Next step, it will ask you to add tags if you want to add tags, which I don't want to do right now. Then, as we discussed during the PPT, it has got a life cycle, and we have got two different classes for that. You can enable life cycle policy and select here whether when you want to consider your data to be infrequent access, so that there will be two different classes, standard and infrequently access. And this policy will decide after how many days you want to consider your data as infrequently accessed or IA. So you can say 7, 14, 30, 60, 90, whatever you want. You can select that there. We're not doing anything. We're just keeping it none, because we are going to, as it is terminated after this demonstration. Then the throughput mode. So busting is the default, and you can use the provision mode if your applications require more throughput. Then the performance mode. So if you want, you can use basically almost all of your scenarios would be able to be fulfilled with the help of general purpose. But if you still think that you're gonna use thousands of EC2 instances so to access this file system, you can select max IO. Sorry. If you want, you can enable encryption also, so that your storage at rest can be encrypted. So click on next step. Let's go up, and here you can select the policies, what kind of a policy you want, and whether you want disable root access by default, enforce read-only access by default, or enforce in-transit encryption for all clients. So all these things you can define based upon your requirement. Okay, so either you can do here, you can go to JSON and create a policy and put up here. Okay, currently we're not doing that, but there are the options we have. You can disable the root access, you can enforce read-only access, and you can enforce in-transit encryption for all clients. Then if you want, you can create access points also, so that you can provide application access to your file system. So we do not want to do that currently because we have not discussed the access point yet. So I just don't want to do it. I'll keep it blank currently. Next step, and if you go up, it will give you ask you to review your options which you have provided. So if you're okay with that and you want to add it, then you can click on create file system. So it's going to create these mount targets for us. It has been successful. it's available. It's still creating three mount targets across three availability zones. So it will gonna take some time. We'll come back to it. Let's in the meantime, let's go and see how we can make use of it. I'm going to create two EC2 instances. Currently, we have none, so I'll click instances. So I'm going to select this FreeTR based AMI. I will go with the T2 micro, the one which you normally use. I think I will keep everything else same. I just want to change the availability zone. So let's go for 1A. And that's it. Let's click the storage. I'll keep the default. Add tags. I would like to add tag here. I think it was 1A, right? So I'll call it name web 1A. Let's create a security group, or we can use this one. Let's see what else, we have here. TCP, HTTP. Okay, we have all the required ports open, so we'll select this one only. So we'll keep using a role demo SG. Click on review and launch. It says employee instance security group. So let's go launch. Think I have this key, so I'll say acknowledge. Let me check, do I have the keys or not? Yes, I think I do have. So I'll acknowledge it and launch the instance. So instance is being launched. Let's go back and launch another one. Okay, the one which we used, it was in 1A. Okay, so now we just need to take care that we are going to select a different availability zone so that we can see whether it really works or not that way. I'm going to use a different one. I'll go for 1C. And this time, let me click create a user script. Let's say bin shebang. Yum install httpd -y service httpd start check config httpd on. And there's one more thing which we need to do here, because this is a machine we are going to use with the EFS, so we need a mount helper. So I will install that also. Yum install, there's a mount helper from Amazon, amazon-efs-utils. So basically this is a utility which you can use, amazon-efs-utils. Why? Let's see whether it works or not. I'm gonna with that. Is there any spellings mistake? Install HTTPD service HTTPD start check config HTTPD. I think this should work. Let's go and add storage. We'll keep it same. I'll add a tag here so that I can identify which location this works with. Just 1C, configure security groups. I'm going to use the same security group which we used for the previous one. And that's it. Let's go and launch. I have this key, so I'll acknowledge it. Launch instance. So we have created two instances, and one instance which is in 1C. We have created and installed Amazon EFS utils. On one which have not created that, so we'll do that one. We'll do the installation manually by logging into the server. In the meantime, this server would be ready. Let's go to this server. I think started running, so I'll log into this one. So I'm logged in. Okay, I need to share the screen. Give me a second. I hope you see the screen now. So let me use my privileges. I'll become sudo, clear the screen, and first thing I need to install yum install httpd -y. Okay, clear. So let's start the service httpd start check config httpd on. Now let's install that. I think we have not installed its Amazon EFS utils here. So yum install Amazon. This way we can also check whether this is still applicable or not, because this is what I did almost 3-4 months back. They might have changed the utils also. So Amazon EFS utils, I think that was it. So, okay, it's done. So it's clear. So our job is done here. So let's go and check what is the status over there. So these are my two instances. If I just go and check whether this Apache working or not correctly, it's working fine here. Let's go for the next one. So it's working fine on both of the machines. Okay. Now let's see whether my this thing is ready or not. And before that, we need to do one more thing. And okay, let's go to the Elastic file system. So if it is, it says success, and if you look at it, so these are ready, and we have got this security groups, which is SG917230E2. Let me see if it is visible here. Go to the security groups. So this is the security group you're talking about. If you select that one, this security group has been by default attached to your EFS file system. So if you look that, it has got inbound rule 1 and 3. If I go to inbound rule, all traffic protocol range source is default. So let me edit the inbound rule. Basically what I'm trying to do is now I want those two EC2 instances which I have created should be able to reach to this particular EFS target. So I'm going to add a rule for NFS kind of a traffic. So I'll go and find if we have an NFS rule here, click on NFS. So it will open TCP 2049, and what we're going to do is we're going to add this security group we just used for our EC2 instances. So this was the security group behind which my EC2 instances are there. I'm going to select that, right? And that's it. And click on save rules. Okay, so what I did, I changed the default security group which was attached to the EFS storage. I have provided, or I have allowed inbound traffic for NFS from the security group behind which my EC2 instances are there. Okay, so now this EC2 instance should be able to talk to the EFS storage. So let's go back, and if you see here, look this one, it says EC2 mount instructions from local VPC, EC2 mount instructions across VPC peering connection, and on premises mount instructions, right? So from here you can find the mount instructions. So click on from local VPC. So this is how you can use your instructions to connect to the EC2 instances. Okay, so we have already installed this EFS utils, and now to mount your system, you can copy these commands here. See, if you can see, we have this command. If you want to use TLS option, you need to copy this command. If you are using an NFS client, you can use this command. Okay, so I'm going to use this one, and I'm only going to use till this point because I'm not going to mount it as an EFS. We'll make our own mount point. Okay, so I want this command because I'm already logged in as a sudo, so I don't need sudo. So mount -t EFS. This is my file system ID, and that's it. I'll copy this. I'll go to my instance. Okay, I need to stop it here. I'll show you there. You see this one? Okay. If you look at here, we are already logged in as a root. Let me go to that directory. cd or www. So we already have this directory, right? And currently we do not have anything. Let's go one step back. Okay, and I want to paste this command here, and now I want to add it as a, those who are from the Linux background, please check the syntax because a lot of time I missed that. Any space or anything which you think is missing or something, please let me know. So this is, I'm gonna mount it. If everything goes smoothly, it should be allow me to mount. I think so. It is done. So let's go to it. Okay, nothing. Let's quickly create a index.html here, so that which we can use as a server, index.html. I'll quickly create a small HTML tag. I hope I do not need to explain all this. You already understand all this, right? So this is my done. Do we miss something? Any tag forward to close? I think we are good to go. Okay. So Control X, sorry, enter. So ls, we have this index.html. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into the other machine and try to configure the same over there as well. See whether this thing has been, already we have it. If you did, nothing is there. ls is nothing. So I'll go one step back and let me see if I have, let me get the command back from there. So I'm using the same command here as well. Let's see if we are able to mount properly or not. You can see I already have index.html which I created on the other server. So we have successfully connected these two instances to the same storage. Now I'm going to stop sharing this one and I'll take you to the browser where you can see how does it work. See, this is my public IP of my server which is in 1C. If I go there and put this public IP here, it should show me the same page. Okay. Now if I go here, instead of 1C, if I do the 1A, I have got the same page. I mean the storage index.html being shared at both of the same index.html is being shared between two different servers. You can see that. Now I'll stop sharing here. I'll take you to the console again. You see the blue, blue one. Let us do some changes in this particular. Sorry, we'll do some changes in the index.html here, and let's see how soon and can it get reflected to the other also. So let me change this time to the green, and I will do something which is in 1AZ AC, and I'm gonna change this also. This time I'm gonna say I created this web page on the server in AZ1C, but I updated this one in AZ1. You can do whatever. I'm just want to you guys to just understand what's happening here. Whatever you want, you can write. Do that. Hopefully it is done. Let's stop sharing and go to the browser again. This is the browser. This was my IP address. If I refresh it, see, it got immediately affected in reflecting here. Let me take the other IP address from here. If I go and put it here, I have the same thing. See, this is how you can make use of EFS to have a common storage for multiple instances, and it's pretty easy to install. You saw that it's very easy to configure as well. Plus, there is no need of pre-provisioning. It can give you multiple options in terms of performance as well as the throughput, and it can be connected to your EC2 instances as well as your servers which are there on the on-premises. The only prerequisite to connect your on-premises that you should be connected to your on-premise facility, and AWS facility should be connected either through a VPN or through the direct connect, which is a dedicated connectivity between your data center and the AWS facilities. Okay, guys, so that's it for the EFS. So we have covered 3 different types of storage now. Now you must be thinking what kind of a storage can be used when. I hope the way we have configured it by now, I have already given a lot of use cases as well as the hints. No, Joel, you cannot do that. Anshuman, yes, you can do that, but you need to find a way to connect it because see, auto scaling would always require that mount point to be installed, right? So you need something with when the instances are launching, like a user data, which we did on the very first. That's the reason I showed you there also how you can use that script thing to mount it. So you need to put that user data during auto scaling, so that before your instance start operating, with the help of that boot script or the startup script, you can connect or mount the targets, right? So that's where you can use it. Okay, so difference. Let's talk about certain similarities first. In S3 and EFS, you would require what you call. There is no need of pre-provisioning. Yeah, you can dump it whatever amount of data you have, right? But in S3, you will not be able to mount it like this, the way we have done it currently, which can be used as a with the help of NFS. Your S3 would always be used with the help of REST APIs or HTTP. Okay. Then your S3 again it's a object based storage. This is again a block based storage, but you cannot use it to install operating system as of now. You never know when they start doing it or start giving it as well. When last time I checked it, it was not possible to install that operating system over there. Then it's very cheap storage service which can be used as a file share. If you think now, do you think that you think that you can replace your file servers with the help of this EFS without even installing a server or anything? I think so. You can do that, right? So there's no need of a file server. You can use EFS to do that. Okay. Then in case of EBS, you know that when you need to provide a physical disk or a kind of a virtual disk to your laptop, you would be laptop, desktop, or servers. You would be using, in that scenario, you would be using EBS, and EBS has to be pre-provisioned, and it has to be in the same availability zone where your EC2 instances are. Plus, on EBS, you would be able to install applications, operating system, databases, etc. So according to these different guidelines or factors, you can decide whether your scenario would be fulfilled by S3 or EFS or by EBS. Okay. Any more questions, guys? If not, then we have a different topic to cover today. So let me, because that will not require what you call the demonstration part. So it's just a theory you are supposed to know, and then we can move to the next one. Okay. If no more questions, I'm stop sharing here. And all these storage, I think I have not spoken about Snowball and Snowball Edge. If your scenario demands a physical disk to be presented at your doorstep or at your physical location from AWS, you can order Snowball or Snowball Edge. The difference between these two, that Snowball Edge would have a computing power along with the storage, while Snowball itself is only the storage itself. You order it from AWS. AWS sends it to your facility. You receive it. You take it, plug it into your facility, copy the data, and send it back to AWS. AWS will take the data which has you copied into the Snowball, and it will copy it or paste it into the S3 storage of your account. So if you have that kind of a data which you don't want to copy across a dedicated connection or across internet or across VPN, you can also order physical disk from the AWS, and those will be known as Snowball and Snowball Edge. Okay, a Snowball Edge will have the computing capacity. I mean, it will have compute included in that same box, while your Snowball would be purely storage, which would be kind of a USB plug-in. So you just plug in like a hard drive, but it would be a very big kind of a storage, right? So that's how you can make use that Snowball also. If your scenario or question asks that if you need to order physical disk, or this data is something which is very critical or which is of very high or a very large quantity, and you cannot afford to choke your bandwidth while transferring the data, so you can make use of that physical disk in form of Snowball. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the storage, and let's close it and